Welcome to our latest webinar. This one is all about MARKUS Mobile for assets. So I'll explain a little bit more about what that entails as we go through the slides. So today is all about MARKUS Mobile for assets. Certainly customers on the call at the moment, you'll be very familiar with the MARKUS Mobile for sort of the site element, which is our traditional buildings maintenance version. So I'll be covering off how the asset version of that is subtly different, but also some of the key features of the back office system and how those features can support you with working on multiple tasks on different sort of single visits, if you like, and the asset-based systems that you encounter in refrigeration systems, and also things to do with fire risk assessments and facilities management and preventative maintenance. So I'm going to cover off quite a few things. It's all going to be very related to the same topic, but you'll just see how subtly different the system can be to cater for the different things that you've got going on with your different contracts or different client types. Just to begin, there's quite a few differences between the systems, but the most probably notable difference is within the mobile app, and it's really obvious when you first get onto the very first page of the mobile app, which is your places to go screen. So on the left you've got our site version, which shows one job or task per visit, and that's per site or asset. So you've got, as you can see there, we've got our 3 jobs to do. Each of those jobs is a single job for that property in the job description. So you've got a gas service there, and you've got a bit of plumbing work to do here. So it's all one task or one job, one visit. Over on our asset-based system, which is what we're going to focus on today, you've got something a little bit different. You've got one job, but 24 tasks to do on this example here. So that would be a maintenance visit where you're carrying out PPM checks on 24 assets. So we'll go into that. But usually site jobs, one site, one job, one visit, but you could have multiple jobs like this one. And that could be maintenance of an air conditioning system in a hotel. It could be monthly PPM checks in a really large site. Something that we're all familiar with, logging of a job. Primarily done in a site-based system against the site, although there is a concept that you can introduce. Some of our customers do this, and that is the concept of parent asset and child asset. So whilst most people would log a job that looks a little bit like what you can see there, for the specific property, you could have a block of flats where you could log the job against the block, say for a communal area, maybe a garage, and then obviously, of course, you could have the individual flats as well. So it's quite common for some of our electrical contractors to log jobs for the communal area to look at the emergency lighting in the lobby and the lift area, and then also carry out the electrical testing within the flats. And that's done in the site-based system, but using the concept of parent and child asset. Before we go on to the asset-based system, I thought it would be quite a good idea to show you our site-based system. So the places to go screen, there you can see a very traditional job that you'd accept for a single property. You'd travel to site in the normal way, carry out any risk assessments that need to be done. Once you're on site, you can see it's very specific to the job. It's just one job. You'd be taking your photographs. You'd be recording any surveys against the visit, recording your work done. Any materials that you might have used, you can add those to the job. And then you'd be providing an end status for that visit, along with things like signatures and so on. That's a very quick walkthrough, really fast, I appreciate that, but I'm sure we're all very familiar with how our normal mobile for sites works. There was some bits missing, I did gloss over it, but that was very much one job, one site. Mobile for assets. So on a job entry screen, you saw the job entry screen that I just showed you for the site-based system. It looks very similar. So on the left, we've got a job that would be recorded for a site, and on the right you can see I've expanded the asset search to show you what other options are available. So often maybe in a refrigeration world like this one is, the client themselves might not know specifically which asset is broken. They just might identify that the air conditioning isn't working very well. Well, in which case you can log jobs against the site, and the engineer can then switch that job whilst they're out on site for the actual asset that's broken. But it also allows for them, which we'll cover in a minute, for the engineer to raise their own jobs out on site for breakdowns that they find as well. But what I've shown you here is that there is a bit of a difference in our data structure in the way that we display it to you as the users. So you can log a job here on the left against the site itself, or you can be very specific and log one against the asset individually. But one of the very subtle differences about the asset-based system is the way you can do PPM scheduling. And this is one of the main features that we wrote to manage the scheduling up of multiple assets across multiple visits over a year, depending on the asset and the frequency that you have to attend. So if I just show you this quickly, this is another walkthrough, and this shows us how you can do that for a refrigeration world. But if you imagine, this could be done in any area where you've got assets that need attention. So we've got the option to create a schedule. So really simple. We'd pop the client in, the contract that you want to put all these on, and the site that you want to go to. And then we've got there at the bottom a date range you want to run your contract for. So I've just said 12 months. And this is the screen that's really useful. So you've got a visual representation on the grids there of when you want to attend site for each of your assets. So you can toggle them all off and put them on another month and put them back. And you can also individually, if you wish, remove the green ones and put them in a different month. But what you can see there is different assets require attention at different frequencies and at different times of the year. Once you've got your grid sorted out, you can then create your jobs. So this is going to create a set of jobs that you can see listed there, each with a description that you can amend, and you can link them to a suitable trade. We've got some customers that link them to major visit, minor visit, belt cleans, coil cleans, all that kind of thing. But once you've done that, you end up with a maintenance plan or a service plan, where you get listed your jobs that you can then click into. Each of those jobs are listed in this report here, where you click into a job and it looks just like a normal job sheet, except when we scroll down our job sheet, we have a list of all the asset jobs that exist on that site. So each of those things is a task to do. So if you remember our places to go screen on the mobile app that I showed us briefly at the very beginning of this presentation, we had one maintenance visit with a number of tasks. Well, that number of tasks would have been that big list of jobs or assets that you just saw on that screen. So that's how you can really quickly create a maintenance schedule for all of your assets and get it issued out to an engineer ready to go and work their way through over the course of a few days if it's a big site. That's how you'd create it in the back office, but what about the mobile? Well, on the mobile side, I've done the same thing, a little video to walk through. So here is our app on the places to go screen, and you can see the job cards. We've got an installation job at the top, and the second one down is a maintenance job with 43 tasks. That's where you've got a PPM with 43 assets. And this one here, I'm just going to pause the video before it moves on. The bottom one, a maintenance job with 41 tasks, but also an installation job. So it's possible within the asset-based system to combine all of your jobs that you've got at a site into the one visit. Of course, providing that engineer can carry out those trades, but you can merge them all together so you can have a mix of breakdowns, maintenances and installs all on the same visit if you needed to. So let's step into that maintenance visit. If we scroll down, you can see the tasks that we've been given. Those are all the assets on site. There's a search field there that you can use to identify certain asset types. You can literally search on any of the words there and it will find them. And we would accept our job as normal, like the normal process of doing our driving to site, carrying out risk assessments and so on. The main difference is when we arrive here on our on-site menu. You can see you can filter this list. We've got 43 tasks to do. That's all 43 assets that are on this site at the moment. And we can search for the job as well. So if you're on a particular asset and you want to search for that make of the product, you can do that. You can also, once we've removed that, search for something slightly different. You'll notice the results have changed from 1 to 6 there. So we're just looking at all the chillers. So if you're on a really big site, you can narrow down your search results quite easily. Now, what we'd do is we would work our way through each of these jobs. But if the jobs that were there, perhaps you hadn't got the asset listed that you need to work on, don't worry. We've got the asset register for the entire site. So you can step in and you could make changes to an asset if you noticed it was incorrect or something. But you can also add assets to the system as well using that field there. So if you find a new asset that isn't on there, you can add it for your office ready for future use. We can also add jobs. So at the moment, we're supposed to be carrying out maintenance checklists. But if there was a breakdown job that needed to be done, you could have added a service job while we were there. If we click into our first job, we can edit information on the job. So we could change the asset if we'd got the wrong one, and we could edit the asset details again from here, but normally we'd go straight here. And this is where you can record the work done against that asset. Photographs, work done, and so on. But on a PPM, you'd be doing the checklists. So surveys are revealed. You could record work done, any parts used if it was relevant to the job. And when you've finished having done all your work, maybe uploaded photographs, you would choose a status for that asset. So we've just finished our maintenance checklist. They're indicated by that tick for that first asset. And then all we'd do, you can see there that that one's done. You've done one of 43. And when we look at our filters, you can see that we've done one and we've still got to do 42 of them. So if we click on the to do, that's narrowed that down now in our results. So we're only seeing the things we have to do. And again, we'd work our way through, going into each asset, recording our work done and marking the end status. And each time we do that, it will tick off to say we've done it. Once we've got through to the end of our visit, you'll have them all ticked. I haven't done that at this point, but you could add your other jobs if you needed to. So if we identified something broken, we could add a job for a service engineer to go and attend for that fridge. Maybe it's running hot. So while we were there on the maintenance visit, we identified a problem. That will go and create that job, which you can see now at the top of that list. That's created a breakdown job, which we could step in and do if we so wished, if that's part of your contract and you're allowed to do that. If not, you could just simply end the visit at this point and send that job back to the office for them to do something with. But I'm just going to just go back a step there because I talked over the bit that I wanted to explain to you. So in that menu, on a breakdown job, at the very bottom of that list, you'll see there's options for gas movements, insert and removal of gas. So when you're working on refrigeration systems, if you need to put gas into a system, you can choose the gas cylinder you've got on your van and the amount of gas you've inserted. That then records that gas movement for FGAS purposes, for all the audits that you've got to do. And that's tagged against that site and specifically that asset. So once you've finished on site, again, same process as normal. You would mark the visit as finished. You'd end your visit, send the job back to the office, but you can record your times against the individual tasks you've done if you so wish. These are optional screens that not everybody has. And then, of course, we can sign the screen as normal and send the job back. So what I've just showed you is that you can step into multiple assets on site, recording all your PPM checks, but also you can raise breakdown jobs as well. And one of the little subtleties that's a bit different in there, of course, and it's very specific to the refrigeration world, is the ability to record gas movements and do the whole management of gas cylinders. One of the benefits to the asset-based system, so take, for example, that's a maintenance visit there where we maybe had 40-odd assets to do. What you can have is a consolidated PPM checklist. So rather than getting a survey printout, one for every asset, which could end up being 1 or 2 pages per asset, you can have this consolidated list where your fields are listed across the top and each of the assets get listed here, and that's your PPM checklist. And in some systems, and certainly some sites, that can just simply be 1 or 2 pages that you can then send over to your client as evidence that you've carried out all the checks you were supposed to do. I mentioned the gas logs. I'm only going to briefly touch on this because if you do work in the refrigeration world, you'll know all about this. But this, on the site sheet, you've got the ability to go into the printing of the gas log, which is just there. And that will allow you to print a document that looks a little like this, which gives you all the information to do with the site and to do with the additions of gas that you've inserted into systems and the reason why, and then any gas that you've taken out, and also leak checks that you might have carried out on any of those refrigeration assets. So you've got a lot of really good auditable information there, all relating to the FGAS logs, and that's available on every site. Now, I mentioned gas movements. You saw me do an insert of gas from the mobile app. All those things are possible from the back office as well, and it works a little bit like a stock control system. So you cover all manner of gas levels, so who's got what cylinder and how much gas they've got in it, and also you can show where the gas came from and went to, and you can track it. which is all required for your FGAS logs. Okay, so moving on from refrigeration, I mentioned on one of my first slides in this webinar was the ability to do fire risk assessment. So we have a different version of the app, very similar, but slightly different for fire risk assessments. And those are often broken down into two types of work. You get the pre-inspection, where you go out and identify any risks or penetrations in walls. And in the second visit, you would probably go out and fix any of the issues you'd found on the survey. So using our app to do the pre-inspection, looks a little like this. So you can see we've got our job with one task for a site. That's because at the moment we're going out to do a survey. We haven't surveyed it yet. So we're going to a block. So we accept our job as normal, travel to site, do our risk assessments, and arrive on the on-site menu, which as you can see is a fire penetration survey against a block. So if I press the add job button and stick a penetration job on there, this is me walking around a site and identifying any fire risks to that site. So you'd provide a description, a reference for it, and a photograph of the particular penetration. You can then add an ordered line, which would be an SOR code for quoting for the work to actually rectify this problem. So there's a big old list there on our example. You could scroll down it, or you can search, and then you can add your codes to the survey to say, to rectify this problem, we need to do this. You can increase quantities, or you can take photographs, and you can add multiple codes, of course. I'm just going to do one. And once you're done, you hit next, and that, as you can see there, has now switched our job on that site to be the fire door. It's no longer against the block. So we walk around site and we continue our survey, adding penetration jobs as we go. So I've just added a second one now for an air conditioning duct. And again, once you've finished, add your lines that you need to add. So I've got a duct code that I've just added, and there we have now 2 penetration jobs ready to go. Now, obviously, you'd keep going around site. For today, one example of just those couple there, we'd finish the visit and we'd mark it as complete, and then we'll send that job back to the office. So you'll notice I didn't click into the jobs once I'd raised them. What I was doing at that point was I was surveying the job. So I was adding in my assets, or the issues found on site for the future, adding those in and sending those back to the back office, which in the office would look a little like this. It's a job sheet. And you can see there at the bottom on this section here, we've got 2 fire safety work jobs. And if you were paying particular attention, you'd see the photographs matched up with what was shown on the mobile app for our fire door and for our AC duct. And those are now assets in the system because you've got the asset reference here. So in theory, in the future, you can raise jobs against them and you can report on them individually and so on. Rather than try and show you a PDF file and zoom in on it and everything, I've just done a little animation of it. So the fire safety survey could produce a document that looks a little like this. So you can see there, we've got our 2 pages, 1 page per asset or per penetration that we found on the site. And you can see you've got the photographs and the details of everything there as well. And that's the sort of information that you would normally send over to your client to say, we've been out, we've surveyed your property, we've found these issues, what are we doing about them? And that's when they would then usually come back to you and issue with the remedial jobs to go out and rectify them. Moving on to our third example. So we've covered off a refrigeration world. We've now got a fire risk assessment world that you've just seen. But we've also got the mobile for PPMs, which is a facilities management style. It's very similar, and you'll see that the videos that I've done are subtly sort of a bit shorter, really, because they are practically the same product, but just dressed up a little differently to suit different requirements. So another use case of this is managing facilities management PPM works, often in large sites. One of our clients, who is on the call, does exactly this, and they do it at a university campus. So we've mocked up a university campus as part of this example to show you how that would work, where the engineer would record their maintenance checklist for each check required on the large site. So it could be that they're going around doing checks in the kitchens, doing water checks. They might be checking all the fire exits, the emergency lighting systems, a whole bunch of things that they could possibly be doing. And that might vary depending on the frequency in the year that you need to do them, but also it could vary on who is it that's doing it. You might have to subcontract certain works. But for this example, I've got us doing some kitchen checks. So I shall show you how that behaves. So again, one maintenance job, 3 tasks. They've been sent out to some student accommodation to do 3 tasks, as you can see there. So again, similar idea. We just click into the job card. We arrive on site. And you end up with something that looks a little like this. So I've already started this job to speed the whole process up, but you can see our tasks. So you travel to site, do your risk assessments. You land on the on-site menu where you've got your tasks to do. So you can see there we've got our checklist to do for the kitchen diner area. Again, if you've got the wrong asset because whoever logged it got it wrong, you can change it. But you've got the same options here. You can take photographs and attach photographs. You can record checklists. You can record the work done or any parts used. But on a PPM, you wouldn't normally be doing that. You'd just simply go for the checklist. So I've got a couple of examples on here. You would just click into your surveys and complete them individually. So I'm not going to do them all with you, but you can see some sample surveys there. They would walk their way down. Once they're all done, they would be indicated there by a tick. Of course, you can add further surveys if you needed to, but usually we would then go back and hit the next button to end that task. And that's now ticked off the first PPM check. And you'd walk your way down the rest of the areas within that site or the assets that you were looking at, marking them all done. Once you'd finished, you'd end your visit with a suitable status and send that job back to the office. So, as I did say before that video, I've cut out a lot of screens because we don't need to see them travelling to site and capturing the signatures. All those things remain the same, but just the little way that you operate it for the PPM checks is a little bit differently. If we go to our next slide, which shows us the job sheet, very similar. So it's a standard job sheet, but you can see on that job sheet at the tab here for the job inspections, which are your surveys. On this particular example, I had 2 surveys created. I could, of course, individually print them, but from the share menu, you get quite a nice report that we can present to you, which I can show you here. So you would print a combined survey, which if I just expand that so you can see it, you get your results and you get the different checklists that were carried out with all the answers provided. And so that's a combined checklist that you can do on the FM world as well. So to recap, the MARKUS Mobile for assets is in use across a lot of our customers, and they're doing quite good things with refrigeration, specifically, as you saw on my example, asset repairs, maintenance and installs, but with a focus really the sort of the big thing is the compliance with your FGAS requirements. We've got people successfully doing the fire penetration surveys and then carrying out the remedial works afterwards. And then just that last example that we just saw at the Uni of Epics, facilities management for PPMs. Now, it's not obviously not restricted to universities. That's just a good example where you've got multiple buildings across a large site or many sites, if you like. But there are warehouses that we've got people doing this in. So if you imagine sort of almost like a distribution centre where you've got roofing checks that might need to be carried out, you'd have all the fire exits that need looking at, the emergency lighting, a whole bunch of things to do with lightning protection maybe on the roof. You can have a whole host of different PPM checklists all linked together using the MARKUS Mobile for assets. So if any of the examples you've seen today are something that you feel you could use within any of your contracts that you've got with any of your existing customers, we'll quite happily set you up with a demo system, probably doing it on your live test system, so you could have a play with this and see if it's something that you'd like to utilise within your organisation, and we'd be happy to work with you to get that going. Before I forget to remind you about it, next month we've got a session all about stock control, and that is a Thursday again. It's Thursday the 20th of November, and I'm doing a session all about stock. It's a bit of a hot topic stock control at the moment amongst our customers. I've had one customer earlier this year that approached us even earlier this year, and they went live with it a few months ago. And we've got a couple of customers at the moment who are all pushing to go live with stock control and getting the processes in place to do that. So it seems to be quite an interesting topic for our clients. So we thought we'd put together a session to explain what all that is all about, and hopefully it might be of use to some other customers of ours as well. Don't forget, everybody, we have our Christmas social, which is taking place on Wednesday the 26th of November in Manchester at Rain Bar, which is just by the Bridgewater Hall, and we are having an evening where you can come along, meet the team, meet other users, and I think we're also drawing our annual Christmas raffle at that evening as well. So it'd be great to see as many people as we can. It'd be lovely to see you there if you can make it. Hope that was of use to you. Thanks for coming, and we'll hopefully see you on the next one.